peace, gratitude, and highest heart love. Welcome to the YouTube reading of Poverty, Ethnic Identity, and Healthcare. We previously, peace guys, we previously left off on page 79. So this is part 6 of Poverty, Ethnic Identity, and Healthcare by Vern and Bullough. We will pick up at the middle of page 79. Welcome. Peace. I'm the moderator and narrator, Uriel. Thank you. Part 6. Inevitably, the first or second generation Mexican Americans, as well as the recent Puerto Rican immigrant, faces the Anglo healthcare institutions with a certain amount of suspicion. One of the difficulties in treating tuberculosis among both of these groups has been the people's fear of the hospital. Rather than go for hospitalization, many people deny they have the disease until the case is very advanced. Although physicians in Mexico have high standards, they are mainly confined to urban, middle class, areas. The primary source of medical care in most Mexican villages, as well as in the poor sections of the cities, is folk medical practitioners, whose knowledge is based upon an elaborate and well-developed system of beliefs acquired outside of any regular educational institution. Though upper middle class Mexican Americans, as well as the more Americanized person in the lower income groups, have abandoned much of the folk medical practices, and newly arrived and the poor of the barrios usually favor the folk system over American scientific medicine. Often they divide diseases into two categories: consulting a folk practitioner for the traditional disease, but an Anglo doctor for Anglo diseases. In an interview study of Mexican American women living in a public housing project, it was found that the overwhelming majority knew about and used the folk system of diagnosis and therapy for at least part of their care. The major folk practitioner in the Mexican American community is the Corredero, in the case of a woman who not only acquired considerable empirical knowledge, but also possesses the charismatic qualities associated with the more spiritual aspects of the role. A good curandero shows great warmth and concern for both the patient and his family. He offers advice, gives treatment, but asks for no fee. Special prayers are often a part of the therapy. If the treatment proves successful, for the family is expected to give him an offering, but if he fails, nothing is expected. This means that the curandero, because he knows no fee will be forthcoming, will often refuse to treat a patient who, from previous experience, he knows he cannot cure, or who he thinks has a bad prognosis. In these cases, the family turns to the Anglo doctor or hospital. The implication of this is not lost upon the patient, who tends to associate hospitalization and the American doctor with a fear of death or serious disability, or otherwise he could have been cured by the curandero. The curandero is not the only folk practitioner. Usually, before he is sought out, home remedies will have been tried, and the neighborhood Sephora, older woman, will have been consulted. Actually, the line between the Sonora and the Curandero is not a clear one because older women usually start out helping their friends and family during times of illness. And if they gain a reputation for success, then they become known as the healers. This is so good, right? Peace. Highest heart love. Thank you for reading with us. Here we go. A male healer may start as a sarado, or who specializes in giving massages, although from the beginning he may use the more general term as of curandero. The partera or midwife is also an important practitioner in Mexico, but to the lesser extent in the United States, where hospital deliveries are more common. The cultural acceptance of the partera, who is always a woman, still influences the attitudes of the Mexican American woman, who has been accustomed to think that the female reproductive process should be a private matter between women. Male obstetricians, groups of medical students, and the matter of fact attitudes of the hospital and clinic personnel often prove to be traumatic in such cases. This tends to act as a further barrier to women seeking prenatal care or accepting contraceptions. The curandero also exists in the Puerto Rican community. Although the role is not so well institutionalized, there are a variety of spiritualists in Spanish Harlem who trace their healing arts back to the cults imported not only from the Puerto Ricans, but also from the Caribbean islands. These spirituals emphasize healing through religious or magical ceremonies, potions, and amulets, rather than through empirical methods. There are also a variety of herbs and charms available which the layman can buy and use at home without consulting any practitioner. Although very often an older woman who has accumulated knowledge of these herbs and or other home remedies will be consulted by her family or friends. She seldom takes this calling as an occupational role as her counterpart in the Mexican American community might do. Folk diseases. Welcome, oh, welcome, peace. Look at that. Oh, yay. Highest heart love. We are reading. That's right. Poverty, ethnic identity, and healthcare. Such a great read. You know, here we go. So, folk diseases. We're on page 81 in the middle. Thank you so much, Sarah. Oh, peace, Tamika. And Soraya. Yes, highest heart love. Much honor. Thank you, Chase. Love, love. Love reading this book. It's so deep, right? Some of the diseases recognized by the various folk practitioners are more or less the standard diagnosis recognized by the more scientific medical community. There are, however, other kinds of illnesses which fit into an independent folk system of belief and practice, and it is for this group of diagnoses that the curandero is most likely to be consulted. Various researchers have worked out systems to classify or group these folk diseases. Margaret Clark, who did an in-depth study of the health beliefs and practices of one Mexican American community, could fit most of them into four categories. 1. Diseases of hot and cold imbalance. 2. Dislocations of internal organs. 3. illnesses of magical origin, and 4. Illnesses of emotional origin. The hot and cold theory of illness has been traced back to ancient Greek theories, which held that the healthy man, that's right, was maintained in a balance between 4 humerus, the phlegm, blood, black bile, and yellow bile. Mhm. Some of these humors were thought to be the disproportionately hot, while others were cold, and imbalances. And that deals with the molecules at its the density, concentration levels, certainly. Between the various essences cause illnesses. This body of medical theory was brought to the New World by the 16th century Spanish explorers and eventually diffused throughout Mexico. In the process of the theory was somewhat altered, and the original idea of the 4 humors were reduced to a dichotomy between hot and cold. Illnesses is thought to be caused by the disequilibrium, which can be the result of a dietary imbalance or exposure. Usually, a dietary regimen or herbs are prescribed to cure the imbalance. Whether a food used in this treatment is classified as hot or cold is not necessarily related to its actual temperature. Ice, for instance, is considered hot because it burns the mouth. That such foods as chili peppers and onions are classified as hot seems quite logical, but the classification of tomatoes, citrus fruits, cucumbers, and chicken as cold is less apparent to the outsider. And the fact that white beans are considered hot while red beans are called cold carries no clue to the uninitiated. It is apparent that the curandero must absorb a large body of knowledge in order to master the whole system. Because of the complexity of the system, the average individual usually does not know all of the classifications and turns to the curandero for advice. Symptoms of imbalance include head colds, mhm, stomach upsets, and general malaise. Infants are thought to be particularly susceptible to cold stomachs, which means that dedicated believers in the system do not give cold foods, including citrus fruits, to their infants in spite of the exhortations of public health nurses. Expectant mothers are often cautious about getting too many foods which are classified as hot because it is believed this will cause their babies to have diaper rashes when they are born. A common folk illness, which is only tenuously related to the hot and cold theory, is empacho. The symptoms of empacho, including a swollen abdomen, diarrhea, vomiting, and fever, are attributed to the bolita, or small ball of food, which is caught in the stomach. Sometimes massage or manipulation are used to dislodge the lump, although other times a dietary regimen is prescribed as it is for ailments caused by a hot and cold imbalance. If the curandero decides a special diet is necessary, he will usually curtail the intake of cheese, bananas, eggs, and soft bread because it is believed that these foods have a tendency to form a boleta. A, at other times, a purgator, yes, at purgative, it is advised to clean out the stomach. Molera sciata, or falling fontanelle, is the most common type of organ displacement. It is usually attributed to a sudden withdrawal of the nipple from the infant's mouth. Symptoms of the ailment include diarrhea, and vomiting. It is interesting that in folk medicine, the cause and effect are often reversed from that of scientific medicine. In this case, the severe dehydration which accompanies infant diarrhea is taken as evidence for a depressed fontanelle. Dehydration can be fatal unless the diarrhea is checked, and enough or prenatal, uh, sorry, parent, uh, parental, parenteral fluids are given. But the folk practitioner does not realize this, and the methods he tries are not really effective. He usually relies on topical remedies, or he may hold the infant up by his heels over a basin of water to try to get the fontanelle to resume in its normal appearance. The fact that Malaria Sayeda is such a well-known ailment is testimony to the fact that severe diarrhea is still common among infants in the Mexican American community, and it is still a leading cause of high infant mortality rate. Peace, everyone. It's hard love. Thank you all. We're reading from the Chapter 4, the Spanish-speaking minority groups. Very key. Very key. Thank you all for being here. Look at that. A less common ailment attributed to the misplaced organ is that of infertility, which is sometimes explained as being due to the fallen uterus. Barrenness is a cause of great sadness because marriage and family are such important aspects of the culture, and women who are mothers are the most highly respected. Barrenness is also regarded as a threat to the male since a man is measured by his machismo, or manliness, including the ability to produce children. The curandero may attempt to treat this infertility with religious and magical cures, as well as massage. Diseases of purely magical origin include those attributed to the evil eye, mal-olor, and to bad air, mal-adder. A folk belief in the scope its folk belief in the evil eye as a cause of illness seems to be almost worldwide in scope, so that any health practitioner who is willing to step outside of the confines of the modern medical center and to communicate with people about their beliefs is likely to run into the concept of the evil eye. In Italy and other parts of Europe, religious medals may be worn to ward off of the evil eye. In an unpublished study of hospitalized Egyptian infants done by the authors in 1966, it was found that approximately half of the mothers interviewed felt that their infant's illness had been caused by one of the one with the evil eye. The woman explained that the handsome, healthy male babies were the ones who were particularly vulnerable to this type of spell, because they were the ones who were most likely to be objects of envy from living persons, as well as from free-floating evil spirits. Similarly, the unsophisticated Mexican American mother may believe that when someone, particularly a woman, admires her infant but fails to touch him, the baby will develop symptoms of mal-olor, including fitful crying, wakefulness, diarrhea, vomiting, and fever. If the person who admires the child touches him, the spell will be broken and no illness occurs. Unfortunately, social workers and nurses are sometimes blamed for casting the spell because they unwittingly admire infants in this manner. Once the symptoms of mal-ojo develop in either a child or an adult, the victim can be treated only by magical means. Mal-air, bad air, as a cause of illness is not so well known throughout the world as the evil eye, although many peoples believe in vague types of airborne spirits which cause illnesses. Symptoms of mal-air can include facial paralysis, that's what we call Bell palsy, right? Convulsions, or other frightening symptoms. The curandero may treat the disease with massage or counter spells. Strong emotions and emotional trauma are recognized throughout Latin America as the cause of illness. The folk practitioners and the medical profession are actually in substantial agreement in this regard, although they do not use the same diagnostic labels. In the American Southwest, the two most common emotional illnesses are susto, fright, and bills, anger. Oh, Bilus, anger. Susto is believed to occur most often in children, although no age is immune because susto seems to be broadly defined to include much more than what we can call fright. Almost any traumatic emotional illness can be the cause of susto. Ritual prayers are a common treatment of susto, although they may be combined with the use of herbal remedies. In such cases, the curandero may also try to manipulate the physical and psychological environment of the patient in order to lessen the emotional stress, although he undoubtedly would not explain his actions in these terms. Bilus is more often a disease confined to adults. It is manifested by nervousness and emotional upset, as well as the psychological symptoms of the type which psychologists, and psychiatrists generally link with anxiety. Thank you for being. Look at this. Yes. This is deep, right? Makes so much sense. And this all involves the health, mental, spiritual, physical, psycho. That psychological is what we're dealing with right here, right? Rituals and herbal remedies. In such cases, the curandero may also try to manipulate the physical and psychological environment of the patient in order to lessen the emotional stress, although he undoubtedly would not explain his actions. See, I love that part right there, because when you're going through, it's already in your head like this, and you're just going through and dissecting. This is where the problem is. This is where we need to get oxygen to, and so on and so forth. Steve, it is manifested by nervousness and emotional upset, as well as the psychological symptoms of the type which psychologists and psychiatrists and psychologists generally link with anxiety. Herbs and emotional support are used in its treatment. There is also a special folk diagnosis of an emotional illness which is recognized by the Puerto Ricans, an illness called ATAC. It seems to be particularly widespread among lower socioeconomic groups and represents a popular and conventional reaction to overwhelming catastrophe. Men and women appear to be equally susceptible. The episodes begin quite suddenly, usually without warning, either to the spectators, a necessary part of the disease, or the patient. The patient sometimes utters a short cry or scream before sliding to the ground. Shortly after falling to the ground, or at the same time, he begins moving his arms and legs in a kind of coordinated fashion. These movements seem purposeful and include beating the fist on the floor, striking out at persons nearby, or banging the head on the floor. Foaming at the mouth is common, but usually there is no incontinent, incontinence or tongue biting as there would be in epilepsy. Mhm, mhm. The attack usually ceases abruptly, with the individual resuming that what he was doing before with little effect. During the attack, no special change in pulse, blood pressure, or neurological signs have been noted by attending physicians. The attack usually lasts for 5 to 10 minutes, but may go on for hours, and some have continued for 4 days. Attacks may occur once in a lifetime or become a continuing pattern of reaction to a particular individuals. Peace, highest heart, love. Thank you, Miss Black Fox. Yay! We're at the middle of page 85. It is worthy of comment that although there are accounts of successful collaborations between Western psychiatrists and Yoruba witch doctors in Nigeria, there does not seem to have been much collaboration between American health practitioners and Spanish folk healers. Anglo health workers tend to either to ignore the folk beliefs and practices or try to educate their patients by depreciating the folk practitioners. Since available information suggests that the folk methods are often effective, it might well be that a creative cooperation between the two groups would improve the delivery of health services. The most obvious effectiveness of the folk practitioners seems to be in the field of mental illness. The most effective of the folk practitioners seems to be in the field of mental illness. E. Gartley Jocko reported in 1959 that the Texas psychosis among the Spanish surname population was less than among Anglos or among non-whites. Since that time, there is evidence that the incidence of mental illness among the younger Mexican American population is rising. And it may be that Jocko's findings were somewhat biased because there were few Mexican Americans in publicly supported facilities. Still, all the evidence to the date gives strength to the idea that the emotional support given both by the extended family and the folk practitioner is at least as effective, if not more effective, in preventing mental health problems than the help available to the rest of the population whose socioeconomic status is equally low and who lack such practitioners. Here we go. Peace, peace. We're at the top of page 86. The Spanish-speaking minority groups, chapter 4. Coming to a close right here. Cooperation could be even more helpful in attempting to eliminate the delays when folk medicine is clearly inadequate for saving lives, as is the case with infant diarrhea. If some sort of mutual agreement could be worked out, the professional health worker would not need to insist on wooing the patient away from the folk healer in all cases. Moreover, the mainstream medical practitioner could be more effective in the struggle to upgrade health if they could adopt some of the personal warmth and health. Oh, let me read that again. If they could adopt some of the personal warmth and appearance of concern which the curandero has. All one needs to do is contrast the hospital admissions officer whose hand is out for cash or an insurance card before any treatment can be given with the curandero who says no payment is necessary unless he is successful. It is true that the curandero uses informal pressures to obtain his fees, but he is much more subtle and less demanding than the fee-for-service system which characterizes Anglo medicine. Closer working relationships with the folk practitioners' knowledge about the culture and understanding of the individual patient could help the health worker deliver more useful care. Often, the very definitions of health and illness differ between the professional and patient. In one study of these perceptions, it was found that Mexican American villagers in Colorado and New Mexico felt that if a man was not emancipated or in pain, and could perform his work role adequately, he was well and had no need for medical care. This has just come up in so many different ways. Oh my gosh, we were just talking about this, the difference just in between genders, right? You know, this tends to happen where the male, they say, you better get out there and work. Well, we gotta work. We have to. The professional had no need for medical care. The professional who holds a preventative orientation to illness may value health care for the well person in the form of immunizations or early treatment of illness before it is debilitating. Such workers would feel less frustrated if they realized that this difference in outlook exists to a certain extent among all poor people because a preventative health outlook correlates with an ability to control the future, and the poverty makes such control impossible. What the professional needs to do is make a preventative services seem more reasonable to the patient by integrating them with the acute care which the patient realizes he needs. The practitioners would thus demonstrate that they are willing to do their share to bridge the gap which exists between the healthcare professionals and the members of the Spanish-speaking subcultures. There it is. That concludes this chapter, chapter 4, the Spanish-speaking minority groups. Poverty, ethnic identity, and healthcare. I'm your moderator and narrator, Uriel and Vern. Thank you so much for being here. Yes. Thank you for greeting everyone. We love you so much, right? We have to do it, Continue to read to the people. Thank you so much, Ms. Black Fox, for reading to the people. Highest heart love to all the readers. I loved this section about the folk medicine and how merging that bridge right there, right? This is something that we've learned to come to do now. But like we said, see the correlations. We know that to a certain extent, the folk medicine has been demonized. So, we are magic, right? So why not use your magic? Heal the people. Highest heart love. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you soon. Hey, happy Kwanzaa, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, highest heart love. I love you, family. So deep. I'm in Alaska. The final frontier. Who do you know travels like that, right? This year I've been all over the place reading the books. Gotta do it. We gotta heal the people. I love that. See you travel like that. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, good for you. That's what I'm talking about. We have to travel. Sending our energy out there. Much love.